Welcome to RVACtv. Here we shine a light on the stories, strategies, and resources designed to uplift Black families and strengthen Black communities. From wealth building tips to community insights, RVACtv is your source for inspiration, action, and growth. Today's episode, Building Black Wealth Through Real Estate, Part 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to RVACtv. This is our first episode, so I am so excited, so happy that you guys are here with us to launch this amazing platform. So, guess who I have with me today? You guys are in for a treat. I have not just a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated by way of RVAC, but I have here my line sister, Tonia Davis. Tonia, tell the people who you are,
Oh,
what do you do, and more importantly, how did you get started in real estate?
all right. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for that amazing introduction to my line sister, Nicole. So, I am a dual career individual, and dual career meaning I'm a realtor and then I work for state government. And
Okay.
how I got to where I am today when it pertains to real estate is actually almost 11 years ago.
Wow.
Almost 11 years ago, I had just had my son. And so, okay, out on maternity leave, I'm engrossed in TV, caring for the baby. And so I love HGTV still to this day. So, of course, I'm watching HGTV. And so they have all the home shows and the realtor, listings in New York. And
Hmm.
so I'm watching it and I'm intrigued. And I said, you know what? I can do that.
Yeah, you can.
So within like 6 months after that, I was enrolled in real estate school, and the rest is history. And
Wow.
I also, too, have to add to that my agent, my realtor, who was my listing agent for my second home that I sold. He was a big proponent in me getting to where I'm at today, too. So
Wow.
that's how I became a realtor,
I love
licensed in
that.
New Jersey.
I love that. And it always takes a village. So, it's not just you having the dream, but it's about those who are your sponsors or those who are your advocates or your mentors that actually help you get to where you are. So, I love you sharing
Yes.
that. Now, everyone here loves a great success story, but can you share one of your most memorable wins with the first time or with a first time investor, and especially how they turned that win into wealth?
Okay, so I actually I know you said one, I have two, but I'm going to talk about the one in
Okay.
particular who you probably are familiar with. But I had a first time investor probably about maybe almost 2 years ago now.
Okay.
And she was, when I tell you, tip top, she had everything in order. She
Wow.
had everything that she needed when the finance company would ask for something, she was on it.
Wow.
So her process was really 1, 2, 3 easy.
Yeah.
And so year one, she was a first time buyer.
Yeah.
Next year, the following year, not even really like a year to date when she closed on her personal home,
Yeah.
she closed and purchased her first investment property. And
Wow.
so she's been soaring ever since. And I'm just so excited for her. And just to watch, she started off investing first in her home.
Yeah.
And then she invested secondly into a property that could be of benefit to someone else that needs a home.
Yes, yes. I love that you share that story. And yes, I do know exactly who you're talking about. And what I love about the mindset of that person. And for the audience out there, in the intro, I talked about how this series is really geared towards how do we build Black wealth through real estate. And so, what I love about this and this particular person you're talking about, they're always in that mindset of what do I need to do to ensure that I am constantly generating wealth? And I think that a lot of times, especially in our communities, we get into survival mode that we forget about investor mode or we forget about generating Black wealth mode. And I think that's something that, regardless of your situation, always put that into your mindset because you're not going to stay in your situation for long. So even if you are in a space where you may not have the monetary means, or maybe you don't have the credit score, which I know we're going to get into soon,
Mhm.
that you should at least start thinking about what do I need to do to prepare for that? Because you're not going to stay in that situation for, forever. And so how do you
Yes.
start preparing yourself so when you are out of that situation, you can just move forward and go ahead and make those plans and take action on those plans. I love that story. Now, are you going to share the second one with us?
If you do
Please
I have
do.
time to share? Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
the second one is another great success and such a good story as well. So it's a group of young Black men who came together. They are college friends, as well as most of them are fraternity brothers as well. So they came together, they built a company, and they chose me to be their realtor and finding their first investment property.
Yeah.
And so they purchased their first investment property as a business together. And
Mm.
since then, they have individually branched off and purchased investment properties on their own, their individual investment properties. So that's just another way. And I think we'll talk about it a little later, other ways to become an investor besides just being an individual investor. You can have a group of investors.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that too. My husband actually did that with a group of his friends that he has had since he was in junior high school. And they got started. And so now they've been, I think they're on their second house and they're just
Awesome.
right along. And then he actually did this also with his family down south as well. So he has all these different companies that are part of a parent company where he's able to do that. And sometimes it's hard to get started on your own. And so looking at people
Mm-hmm.
trust. Once again, takes a village to help build that, I think is really important. So thank you for those success stories. Now we're going to start moving into breaking down to the basics because I'm sure for the people that are out there, you're like, great. Sounds like people had their plans together, sound like they had their village together. But now you're probably thinking, what does it take for you to jump into this? So for those who may believe that real estate investing is out of reach for them, what are
Mm-hmm.
some things that you feel that they can do, a simple first step that they should start considering to really start breaking into that space?
So I think initially, if you have the thought, so that's the first start. You have a thought about it. So
Mhm.
that means it's something that you believe in, you have an interest in. So if you believe it, you can achieve it. We
Right,
all know that cliche, you believe it, you can achieve it. So I think that's for starters. And then I think once you have that thought, you then have to start your research. You have to really know what it is that you're thinking about. What does investing in real estate mean? What does it look like? What do I need? What do I have to be prepared for when I'm going out into that investment world? So I think definitely research. You have to think about the route in which you want to invest in. So perhaps do you want to invest to hold the property or properties, or do you want to invest? You want to flip the property. You want to do it all over, remodel it, and then you want to resell it
right,
for capital right off the bat. So you definitely need to research those particular areas, and then you also need to research the different avenues of funding. So
mm,
you want to make sure that you're prepared in that sense. What is it that is your responsibility as an investor going in to something of that nature? So
yeah,
you want to look at the different avenues. Are you going to go with a private and investor finance company?
mhm,
The normal ones, the traditional ones, in other words. And
yes,
so, or are you going to go with a hard money lender and flipping a property if that's the route that you want to go? So I think you definitely have to be very clear and in sync of what it is and which route you want to go. So
right,
I always say, write the vision and make it
mhm,
plain. You
yes,
already know, you have that thought. And so basically go for it.
yeah,
That's the first step
I
going
love
forward.
that.
But doing your research is so important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for breaking down all of those different things to even consider. I love that whole thing around just having the thought, writing the vision, making it plain, because that's usually that first step most people need to take. Here's my question, because you mentioned few options that people may have. So you talked about traditional lending versus, let's say, a hard money lender. What exactly is that, and what are some of the pros and cons, just from a surface level, from those two
Okay.
different ways?
And so our hard money lender is those are like those private corporations. They're usually that is just exactly what they do. And so you're really thinking of it in terms of you're borrowing someone else's money. So
Right,
it could be a corporation, or perhaps you may know a very wealthy individual who might be able to, loan you some money to start off your investment, projects.
right,
And so then the traditional side of it is just our lenders that we know of.
right.
There's a lot of particular lenders that may be on a smaller scale, not like our Bank of America's or our, let's say, like our guaranteed rate,
Okay,
which is now rate mortgage.
okay.
So they may not be on that level, but a smaller level, but they deal particularly with hard money lending
Mhm.
to investors. And
Okay,
so I would say some pros and cons to looking at the hard money lender side. So
yeah,
with that, the pro is that they don't really get too much into your credit score.
okay,
So they want to just know that you have that initial startup capital, because
okay.
you do have to come to the table with some money, because they have a process in which they lend and send out the money to you,
Mhm.
which is called draws, really. So
Okay,
when you're going through your remodeling process, you contact them, they come out, they inspect, and so forth. And this is just like a really quick overview, surface of
yeah,
that process. And so that's the pro of it, where they're not looking at your credit score. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that, but you want to make sure you have that 10% or 20% or 25% that they may require.
okay.
The con of with working with a hard money lender, or my personal,
Hmm.
my personal opinion of it, is that you have to make sure that your project, that you are best you can meeting that timeline, because they have a timeline, and oftentimes they're charging you a monthly payment until you reproduce that funding that you borrowed from them. So
Yeah,
the thing about it is you want to make sure that you have a timeline, you have a good group of contractors that you're working with so that you can get the job completed within, you want to have a turnaround, I would say, of like 2 to 3 months. You
yeah,
don't want to go on for 6 months, because that's money that you're putting out, which is going to take away from that profit that you're going to gain from reselling that property.
yeah,
And so I think for me personally, that's the con that I see in the hard money lender side.
yeah.
As
I
far as with like, oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was gonna say I can see that. My husband, the first time he bought his investment property, he went with his friends. They did a hard money loan because they were building up their business credit, but they didn't have
Mhm.
enough to be able to get their own, I guess, mortgage for their property. And then they did a hard money loan. So now you have an electrician, which is one of his friends, plumber, which is my
Mhm.
husband, and I guess T's a carpenter. So they all were like trying to hurry up and fix this project in a certain amount of time so they weren't paying this really crazy amount of money every
Yes.
month, knowing they were also paying for all of the renovations they were doing to the flip. So the second time they didn't necessarily want to go that route and they were in a better space where they didn't have to, but definitely it gave them that step or that opportunity
Yes.
step into investing. And so I can see the pros and the cons that you mentioned even play out in real life with my husband when he decided to get into real estate investing. Thank you for watching Building Black Wealth Through Real Estate series. This is our first part in a three-part series. Please come back weekly as we release a new episode each week.